Hello and welcome to the process of a painting. Today we're going to go over the entire process of making this painting, from constructing the background, the skin of the painting, through the ideas that I was thinking about, the things I struggled with, the things I thought were interesting, a little bit about the differences between abstraction and depiction, and how the age of a piece can sometimes affect the way that the artist feels about the work. So, let's get started. So this is me just sort of initially blocking out where the pieces were going to go. I wanted to try and just use these bigger sheets and have a very angular shape to the piece, an angular shape. So first I just pinned them up on the wall and sort of changed their relationship to each other, played around with them, moved them around, things like that. And then once I got that relationship good, I just went through and glued them together to solidify that first step. Part of the logic for this piece included one side of the spine being made by these full sheets, and then the other side of the spine, what in this shot is looking on the bottom half of the painting currently, by these half sheets. And this is just me experimenting with how the shape of the way the newspaper comes can influence the final shape of the painting, because obviously I've been painting all these on newspaper, and the way the paper comes is a big influence on what they look like, and I really wanted to push that as much as possible here. So now we have our whole back layer. None of this will actually be seen, but this is the geometry establishing layer in this process. So the whole back layer all glued together. It's just going to dry and really set up so it can become stiff. And then here in this shot, you can see I've gone over the back layer and I just applied another layer of newspaper over the back layer. So it's the same shape, but this time it has the images I want and the headlines are posted around. And I did not capture the process of putting up the headlines or this front layer. So instead, we're just going to jump directly to painting. So in my last video, I was talking a lot about trying to color match the apocalypse, the San Francisco Day of Red Skies, and really confronting that color and trying to get a hang of it, trying to own it in some way instead of it owning me. I think trying to trap it in this bubble of orange instead of it, the entire world being made out of this color. And you can see around the edge of the painting, a lot of the pictures were taken from that day. So there's some context there about where this color is coming from. So I just went through and it's not all one orange. There's some shifting shades into lighter pink and to darker red, but just trying to establish a few blobby cloud shapes that will be the initial painted area of the painting. Fitting them around pictures and into the geometry of the painting. And this is where that initial established geometry is so important, because it has a huge influence on what is later painted inside of that geometry. And this is a large part of why I'm not sort of like pasting newspaper onto a rectangular canvas, but instead actually creating the piece like through and through. The piece is just newspaper, because I get these much more unusual geometries out of that, and then I can respond to those geometries in paint. Ta-da! Progress is being made. I particularly like this section. I feel like my brain is making paintings that are more and more difficult to photograph. Ah! Oh, it does look real good though. I like the way it looks. It's just very slow. All these little lines are slow. And I don't got no brains, but I do got one single crazy kid. It can touch your paw. What's this? Oh, hi. Can I touch your little paw? You know.
No, no pour. No.
So after that established ground plane, as it were, this background. So we've done background, foreground once in the newspaper. We've done background newspaper, foreground newspaper, then we did background painting, and now we're going into foreground painting. So I'm just going through with this fine liner brush that I got. And I'm just following the curvature of the cloud bubble. So again, geometry of the newspaper influences the geometry of the geometry of the cloud influences the geometry of the line. So it's sort of this like dominoes falling downhill to influence later sections of the painting. Just going through with this fine liner and finding the curvatures, finding where the cloud moves and what colors it has, and trying to trace its body with these lines. This took a really long time. Obviously, this is a very tiny brush, but introducing other colors, bringing colors from the paper in other colors that were also present in that day or present in the other photographs around the paper. And then this is something I do with almost all of these paintings, which is that I swivel them one or multiple times during the process of painting. Swiveling just allows me to be more comfortable as I work on sections of the painting that are just closer to me. So moving stuff down toward the floor so I can sit cross-legged while I paint. But this swiveling has also influenced, or maybe been influenced, I don't know, some back and forth influence there, but with all the headlines, I love when, even when I rotate the painting in any direction, the headlines always face up. And this is where I want to start talking about the relationship between abstraction and depiction. So far in this painting, everything has been really abstract, although it does depict a feeling, like all the paintings in this series. This painting especially is sort of desperate for a need for control, all these tiny lines painted in near perfect parallel, like a net trapping this bubble of aggressive orange color. I will have you know that I went into the bathroom for like 30 entire seconds to wash my brush and all the paint off of my hand because I've been working on a section, and then some kiddids steal my painting spot, even though it has only been gone for like a few seconds. It's very important that we get in Momo's only painting spot, even though there are many, many kitten beds in the whole world. So many. I'm like embarrassed how much I'm into this painting right now. It's so good. Oh. I really love this edge right here. And this bloop. And then this light green, light teal, whatever fucking color that is, with the dents and then the. And I love this dark red part, like coming over the text. And I love, like, this is the picture of the day the sun didn't come up, and this is a protest, and this is a burnt landscape. And I just love how, like, the tendrils like reach out into the photographs and into the headlines and sort of like grab them, grab onto the rest of the painting. And it eliminates, in many of the paintings previously there has been this very hard line where the edges are the context of the newspaper stories and images, and I'm now sort of like bleeding into and eating and sort of, yeah. Oh! But here is the first time in the Pandemic Paper series that I've included a painted depiction of something you could name, of something you could really like point out and say, that is representational. They've had spikes or shards or hair or blobs, but there's never been, oh look, that is a telephone pole. And these poles entered the painting when I realized that I had given myself too much control. All of those swooping parallel lines were beautiful and I loved them, but Here, that ominous sky is taking back some of that comfort I have gotten from entrapping it. The representational telephone poles act as a kind of speed bump to the smooth transition between all of these abstract paintings and force the context to exist both in the surrounding newspaper headlines as well as in the painting itself. But that representation, while I think very successful in this painting, also makes me kind of hate this painting right now. I can see in the video myself really loving it, and maybe I'll get back to that love as the painting ages. But at this medium distance, my artist mind wants to apply some kind of rule set that disallows for representational depiction, making this painting invalid in the series of pandemic papers. I am a very process-based artist, and my processes often come with a lot of rules. I don't paint on canvas. Everything must be made out of newspaper. The newspaper must dictate the shape of the overall painting, which must then dominoes down into the geometry of the painting and the content itself. There must be headlines. They must be done in chronological order with no backfill. And this one use of representation, man, it is challenging for me to look at. I'm hoping I can stick with this feeling and see where it takes me in the next paintings. Because sometimes to innovate, you have to break even your own rules.